Alright. We remove the stock CVT exhaust, which looks like this. It turns down in the back. We just disconnect it right here. There's two screws that connect in the back over there, two 8mm screws. You pull those out, this comes out. I use the stock coupler here because this is egg shaped instead of round, so I used their coupler, and I used a short piece. That's probably about a 4.5, 5-inch piece of 2-inch PVC. It comes up to a 90 right here, and then there's another 90 turning up right there. I just connected two 90s straight together right here. So there's like a short piece of 2-inch pipe to a 90 going up.
Here's a view from the rear. Coming up on the back.
See, we got that 90 go straight into this 90, and that lined up perfectly where I drew the drilled the 2.5-inch hole through the console and ran that piece straight down in here. And then all this is heat wrap. We use this titanium heat wrap where it's the closest to the tailpipe right there. And then this is about a 9-inch, I think 8.5, 9-inch piece of pipe. It comes out of that 90. I drilled a 2.5-inch hole right here in the console, and then this 2x2 fern coat coupler is on here, so we can disconnect this if we really want to and take it apart. Alright, so CVT intake. So first thing I did was remove all the factory pieces that were under here, and the only thing, it's hard to see, but the only thing that's still factory is this piece that's inside of here. It's a little bigger than 2-inch, but I was able to heat up this fern coat just a little bit and stretch it around that factory piece. Then there's a 45 right here. It's got about a 4.5-inch piece that goes inside of the factory piece that's still up there. We stretched it around. As you can see, this is the fat side of this 45, so we stretched it around into the fern coat so it sealed up pretty good. Then we went straight to another 45, and then there's a 8.5-inch piece in between that 45 and this 90. That's an 8.5-inch piece, and then a regular 90 right there. And as that goes up to here, this piece right here that goes down into that 90 is 7.5 inches. For this piece right here, you know, this little cap slides off, and then there's another piece under it. I drilled a 2.5-inch hole right up straight above that 90, and then slid this piece back on it and got up under there and marked the bottom of this piece so we could drill it. And I put that 7.5-inch piece all the way through into that 90, and then I cut it right here and put this fern coat on there. The reason being for two reasons. One, it'd make it a little easier to take apart if I ever have to, and secondly, that gives it a little support because this fern coat sits down on the plastic, and that gives it a little more strength downward. So if somebody got in here for some reason and reached up and grabbed this and pushed down to get in or pulled on it, instead of that's not really supported very well on that 90. I mean, it's up there. This will give it a little extra support. It's really, this is not too complicated on this side. It's just two 45s and a 90. And then I came up, like I said, with that fern coat, a 45, got it to the angle that I needed, and I came up to the top of the cage, and you can do whatever hinge you want to on it. And then I just zip tied it with heavy zip ties to kind of support it and hold it in. All right, for the air intake, to me this was the most tricky part. I've got a 2.5-inch super ATV lift on this, and with that bracket lift, you have to move the shock out. You have to take your air intake hose off. So I wanted to wait to snorkel it until I got this lift done, so I wouldn't have to redo the snorkel. But up under there is your factory air box. It's got a little lip on it that that Fernco fit right over that coupler. It just slides right over it. Then we've got a piece of pipe right here that's I think that thing is about 6 inches long or so. It goes all the way and butts up to it and tighten it up. Then it comes into a street 90 right here, and then a 45. And it kind of goes above the shock. You see there's a gap between there and the shock, and you have to go through the firewall. I went through where the factory connection was already at an angle back towards the center of the machine. That's the reason I did this street 90 to a 45, and as you can kind of tell, it goes at an angle more towards the center of the machine. And when you get inside, you can see that it comes out going towards the center. The way I did this was this hole, if you've got one of these, you know that it's offset, that the air comes in here and goes over here and into the air box. So I drilled straight in front of where it came in, and then I drilled all the way out that 2.5 inch hole, and then I took a razor knife and I cut this notch out right here. This piece on that side of it is not round anymore. I cut that out. On this side, it's really hard to see, I know, but this, I just clipped these edges on top and bottom so I could fold that over, and I actually stuck this pipe from the inside out to kind of force that out. And then I was able to, it's wedged in there really tight. You can see, you can shake the whole machine with it. So I got it, it's not just flopping around, it's pretty tight. And then that piece, this piece of pipe is 11 inches long. It goes into a 90, a street 90, and then a regular 90. And this piece is also, I made it 11 inches long. You can make this piece shorter if you wanted to. It may not be a bad idea, but mine's 11 inches long, and then it goes into this 90, which goes straight up. And same deal here. Now I came out a little closer on this side. That's why, as I said, you could make that, instead of 11, you might could do it 10 and move it back an inch this way to give it a little, but it still worked out. I drilled my hole, 2.5 inch hole right here. This piece from here to here is from here to there, my goodness, I think it's about 5 inches. And again, I cut it, put this Fernco on it, and I stuck this 22. As you can see, the end of the 22 is stuck down into the Fernco also. And you know, that gives it more support. And then the 22.5 gave me the angle I needed to come up and get this one to the top of the cage also. So kind of aggravating, takes a little time, but it as far as vent lines go, you know, I hadn't seen a lot of videos people talking about the vent lines a whole lot, but the way I did it was, you got this one for the fan right here. I ran it up across on top of the frame right here and zip tied it to the frame, and then I went up through, there's a gap between the yellow plastic and the frame, up into there. Pull this centerpiece out where you can see, and then I just ran them to right here, ran it right there and zip tied it to, there's a little hole in that frame right there. I did the same thing on the other side for the front diff. This is the front diff vent right here. It was stuck down in this hole in the frame right here. I pulled it out, ran it back up over. You You can see right there, it goes over top of the frame. I zip tied it there, went on again and zip tied it on the frame there, and up there to the same place, right there in the dash. For the rear vent lines, as you can see, that's the rear diff coming up right here. The other one is coming from the gas tank. It comes out from underneath where the motor is right there. They were originally run down and into the frame over here by this shock mount. Again, that has to come out when you put the lift on, put the bracket lift on. So, and the problem is when you shut this tailgate, it comes down on this edge right here, and if you try to run anything here, it pinches the lines, and if you go up underneath it, the latch is right here and you end up in the way of the latch. So I chose, there's a gap right there in the middle, and for this, and so it was just easier. I zip tied it down there, ran it up where it'd be out of the way, came over to the snorkel and ran above this all the way over, and I kind of attached it to the snorkel here, and then it goes down into just a little bit down in there where it'll stay, and that way if it vents down into there. So technically I'm good to go in water vent line wise up to about the steering wheel, and I won't be doing that on purpose. If it happens, it happens, but you know, the snorkels are up at the top of the cage, but the vent lines are only about steering wheel high. So anyway, that's the way I did it. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but this wasn't my original idea. I got a lot of this from reading forums and watching videos. Now, I didn't use their measurements. I kind of measured as I went, just kind of figured it out. Turned out some of my measurements just seemed to be different than some of the ones I read or whatever, but you can do it. It just takes time. Took me about, I spent about, altogether I probably got 12 hours or so in this thing over about 3-4 days. So you know, it takes some time, but I didn't get in a hurry, and it's all done now. So thanks.